guys, and welcome back to my channel. Today I wanted to discuss and basically answer a question I've been getting recently, which is how did I learn Japanese? And I'm sorry to say that it's actually quite a boring answer, and probably more importantly, the better question is how did I relearn Japanese? And I'm going to explain that. Starting with how did I learn Japanese, which is I went to university, I started taking Japanese classes, I declared it my major, and there, I knew Japanese. Yeah, it's that boring. I went to school, I had teachers, I learned, I took quizzes, I took exams, and I got good grades. And I have to say, it wasn't hard for me. I never made anything less than 100% on everything in Japanese class. My teacher wanted to bump me up a level because she thought I would be bored because I was getting it too easily. And yeah, I was top of my class when it came to Japanese. So very boring. It's just something that came very easily, very naturally to me, and it just made sense. So let's skip that part because, that doesn't really make a video. And let's get to the more important part, which is how did I relearn Japanese? Because here's the thing. I was a double major in college. I also did chemistry, hence Tokyo Chemist. And I had to basically relearn Japanese because so I did 4.5 years at university, and so I finished my Japanese major in the 4 years. I had an extra semester, and I took Korean. I took Korean for a semester. Then I graduated university, and I had 6 months in between university and grad school, and then I went to Argentina and did research there, and I spoke Spanish in Argentina. Then I went to grad school. In grad school I did only chemistry, and so I only did chemistry for 2 years. So right then and there, that was 3 years without doing any Japanese. And then I graduated grad school, and I had no reason to do Japanese. Until one day, basically, I had a very good Japanese friend who was a very, very avid reader. And one day he gave me Ryu Murakami's book, Kagiri Naku Toumei ni Chikai Blue, which is translated to Almost Transparent Blue. It's the book that won the Akutagawa Prize for him. And he handed it to me and said, "You should read this." And I was like, "What do you mean I should read this? I can't read this. I've forgotten everything. I don't remember anything." It's like, no. If anyone can do it, you can do it. Like, totally, you're fine. Well, I didn't do it right away. I can tell you that. I didn't do it right away. At first, yeah, I started. I was like, okay, well, how am I going to approach reading this book? I've forgotten pretty much everything I had learned. Or it's not even that I've forgotten, but when you don't practice something, when you don't interact with something every day, it's going to go to the back of your mind. The information is still there, the knowledge is still there, but it is rusty. It is very, very rusty, and you need to find a way to bring that information back to the front. So initially I tried rereading the textbooks I used to have, and I thought that was really boring. I'd already learned that once, and I wasn't in a school atmosphere anymore, and it was just really, really boring. And then I tried just different things. I tried, at that time, Japanese learning methods were starting to gain a little bit more popularity on the internet, not to the extent they are now, but just a little bit. There was a little bit of information. So I tried doing those kind of methods, and nothing worked. I wasn't that kind of learner. And the thing is that I wasn't learning from the very beginning. I was relearning Japanese, which is a very different experience. And so finally, after about 5 years of not touching Japanese, I just sat down with the book that he gave me, Kagiri Naku Toumei ni Chikai Blue. I just sat down at my desk, and what I did was I brought out some genko yoshi paper, which is the traditional paper in Japanese where kids practice their kanji and write essays using that, because every character gets a single box on this paper. So it's very easy to grade, it's very easy to read for teachers, and it's very good writing practice for students because they can practice the balance of their kanji, getting the right stroke order, making sure the top part is not over too big for the lower part, and make sure the left and the right are quite balanced. So it's very good paper for practicing your kanji, and that's what I did. And so what I did is I just started from page 1, And I wrote every single kanji that was in the book. And what I did basically is every kanji where I remembered the reading from college, I'd write down the kanji and I would write down the reading. And then if it was a kanji that I remembered learning, but I just couldn't remember how to read it, those I would look up and then I would write down, okay, this is how you read it. And that was just to trigger my brain. Like, okay, you had this knowledge, let's bring that knowledge back to the front. So usually I just had to write that once. I'm like, okay, now I remember, yes, that's what it was, and I just remembered it. Remember, I had a very strong natural ability in Japanese, so it was very easy for me to just do this. Now, if it was a kanji I had never seen, then I would just write the kanji and move on. And what I would do is I would wait until that kanji came up at least 3 times again in the book to be like, okay, this kanji has shown up 3 times now, it must be important. It must have a strong everyday occurrence. So it must have a strong occurrence in everyday Japanese. So this means I need to know how to read this. So then I would look it up and I would write it. And then every time again the kanji would show up, I would write it again and refresh what I had just learned previously. And I read that book just like that. It was very slow at the beginning, and then obviously as I pushed on and on and on, I got faster and faster. Now, I'm not going to tell you that's how you should learn Japanese. It's not how you should learn Japanese. It took a good year for me to finish that project, and reading a book in a year is not, it's not really good practice, I wouldn't say. It's not really what I would consider an accomplishment. Yes, I took my time and did things like that. But the thing is that it was the appropriate way for me to rediscover Japanese. So how did I learn Japanese? I just learned in school. How did I relearn Japanese? I found a source that intrigued me, that interested me, and that provided me the motivation and the desire to push through. And that's what I did. Eventually, I supplemented the reading. So maybe I would take a break from reading the book and I would read something else. So for example, I read this one text that is very, very good, very highly recommended, which was called Read Real Japanese. It's created by Michael Emmerich, who is a translator. And what he did is that he would have, I read the short story version of that series, but there's also an essays, and I think there's another book out. But what it is that he had a collection of about 7 short stories, I believe, and he would have the Japanese on the right, and then he would have a general English translation on the left. It wouldn't be a translation like you would read if you were to read that short story in translation by an official publisher. But what it was like, here's a phrase, not a sentence, but here's a phrase within the sentence, and this is how you would approach it. So instead of translating like 肉を食べる, right? 私は肉を食べた. So I ate. So instead of, if the sentence was 私は肉を食べた, I ate meat. So instead of translating I ate meat, he would just do the 肉を食べた. The 私は, the I am, not really at this level. You should already know what that is. So it's not really necessary to translate and tell you that this sentence is I eat meat, or I ate meat. The important was to see that 肉を食べる, 肉を食べる, 肉を食べた, to see that as a phrase, as a compound almost, instead of just saying I, meat, eat. So it's a way, he gave you a way to look at Japanese in a different way so that you can more easily absorb the knowledge, and so that you can better your reading capabilities, basically. So it gives you that. And then in the back, he does give a glossary of words. He does go ahead and give a glossary of words, but he also gives like grammar points, etc., etc. So I read that as well. I would read one short story, go back to the Murakami Ryu book, and then I would read another short story and go back to the Murakami Ryu book. Eventually, I did use these textbooks, the very famous Sou Matome textbooks. I studied for the JLPT N2 once, totally failed it. I was not prepared for it as well. I'm also very, very bad at standardized exams. The whole yeah, I'm just very bad at those. I was very good at Japanese exams in school, but when it comes to standardized exams with the timer and everything, I just, yeah. And then I wasn't really well prepared for it and da da da. So I only took the JLPT once. I did fail it, and I've never taken it again. So here's to show that you can have a job in Japan without taking the JLPT. But that's because I had a very strong resume written in Japanese, and then in the interview they saw that yes, this girl speaks Japanese. So you don't need the exam. But anyway, that's a different story. That's not what we're talking about today. But I did do like those kind of traditional methods as well to balance out my studying. But that's it. But I mean, otherwise, I mean, how did I get to the level I am today? Even though I've never really showed you what level I'm at, I am trying to persuade my good friend to do a video with me in Japanese for this channel, but he's being very, very shy. So I don't know if that's going to happen, but I am trying to make it happen. And at that point, yes, I will speak in Japanese. But then it was just basically taking inspiration and using native sources. How did I increase my reading skills? I sang karaoke. I went to a karaoke, and having to read the lyrics right in front of you without the time to look anything up, without the time to really think, you just have to go like, do I know how to read this? Okay, I know how to read this. And you just go for it. So that helped increase my reading speed very, very well. That was very, very efficient. Listening practice. I listened to a lot of Japanese rap, underground, hip hop music. And, you know, every day you pick up another word and you get a feel for the rhythm. So hip hop was really great for feeling Japanese, the rhythm of the language, getting the feeling for casual Japanese, and also, again, listening practice and whatnot. Then I was very fortunate to have a kaiwa table at my Japanese university, and I did this while I was at university, but I also did this when I came back to Texas. So I went to university in Texas. I did my undergrad at Texas University. I moved away for grad school, and then I came back after. And so while I was an undergrad, and then when I came back to Texas after grad school, I did participate in the Japanese conversation table that was at school. And there it was 3 times a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And what you would do is you do a language exchange with other Japanese students, Japanese exchange students. So you would do an hour of English for them, and then they would do an hour of Japanese for you. And I participated every single one of those. I went to every single one. So when I first started off in undergrad, you know, you can't really say much. So at the very, very beginning, all I did was the very first day I introduced myself. I said, hi, my name is my name, and then I gave my hobbies. I told them what my major was. I told them how old I was, you know, your typical self-introduction that you learn in basic Japanese. And I did that to every single Japanese person in the class, and that was it. That was all I could say for that day. But the fact that I had repeated and practiced that speech as many times as there were students means I conquered that part of my Japanese ability. That was my mission that day, and that's what I did. And then the rest of the time, I just listened to them speak, and I listened to other students speak, and I just interacted by listening. And that's all you can do at that level. But just that is very, very good practice, because it gets you to feel what a conversation is supposed to sound like in Japanese. It gives you the chance to observe, like, not so much even when they're speaking, but what they're doing while they're listening to other people. Listening, it's when you're studying music, it's very often told you, listen to the silence between the notes. The silence between the notes sometimes has just as much to say as the notes themselves. And that comes with everything. And when it comes to language, especially, listen to the silence between the actual conversation. What kind of gestures are they doing? What kind of facial expressions are they making? What kind of ad lib are they doing? Are they very vocal, or are they very silent? And that's all part of the language learning process, and that's something you need to study to become more native-like with your Japanese. And this whole video has been about Japanese, but really this applies to any language that you're learning. So yeah, I mean, that's basically what I did. And then eventually I started reading manga, and then I started reading novels, and I just pushed through, and that's what I did. But for me, I mean, because I had a very strange journey with my Japanese, I definitely should be a higher level now than, I definitely should be a higher level now than what I am, probably, because now I've become quite complacent with my learning. I'm comfortable with my level. I've never really pushed harder than what it is. Because here's the thing, the important thing is, and the biggest lesson is to remember why you're learning Japanese, and to remember, or just why you're learning a language, or why you're learning any hobby, to be honest. For me, I had forgotten why I was learning Japanese in the beginning. Because it was so natural to me, because it was so easy, I didn't have to do anything. It just happened, it just worked for me. I didn't have to do anything. And because of that, I forgot why I was learning Japanese in the first place. And so when school ended and when I had completed my Japanese major, it was like, okay, I've completed the Japanese language. I've conquered the Japanese language. I'm done. A language is something you're never done. You will never be done with a language. It's a constant process. You're still learning your own language. You will always learn new turns of phrase. You will always learn new vocabulary. As slang adapts and changes with new generations in your own language, you are going to have to learn those as well. So you're always going to be learning your own language, just like you're always going to be learning a foreign language. It's a process that never ends. And so you need to remember your motivation, and I had forgotten that, which is why when that friend gave me the book in Japanese, the novel, I was like, oh yeah, this is why I started learning to begin with. It was to interact with Japanese media that I really, really enjoyed. And then eventually it was also just to interact with Japanese people, because I had really amazing Japanese friends, and it was a good way to interact with them on their level. So I admit that I had lost that. I had lost sight of why I was learning Japanese. So that's the most important thing of everything. Instead of, watching a bunch of videos, how did you do this? How did you do that? Advice on this, advice on that. The thing is, basically just remember your motivation. Remember what it is and stick with it and follow that. But remember, it's also allowed to change. Maybe you start learning Japanese because you like anime, and then you discover along the way that you liked learning about the history of World War II, and then after reading the history of World War II, maybe there's something you pick out. Maybe there's a character that is a ikebana, and you're like, wait, now I really like ikebana, and you want to study that. And then there it's like, well, the cutting shears for the flowers. Then you become interested in metalworking, and then you want to learn more about metalworking. Your motivation is allowed to change. It's allowed to adapt, and it should adapt as you go through. So yeah, anyway, that is how I learned Japanese in a nutshell. And yeah, I don't know how much more there is to say that. Feel free to ask more questions if you want to learn, well, not learn, but if you want to hear more specifics, more detailed aspects about certain parts of my journey, feel free to ask. Maybe I can do another maybe another video about the topic. But in any case, that's how I learned Japanese. So in any case, thank you so much for watching. I wish you tremendous success in your own language learning journey, whether that is Japanese, whether that's another language, or even if it's just not even learning about Japanese, it's just you finding motivation and inspiration to continue and to practice your hobby, whatever that may be. So anyway, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye!